The last part of AAA, AAA, that would be authentication, authorization, and accounting. We're focusing on accounting. Accounting is often simply called auditing. What we want to do is be able to track activity. And this is one of the reasons why you don't want people, for instance, sharing the same user account, because how do you track who did what if everyone signs in with the same credentials? So separate user accounts is an important concept related to auditing. So we really just want to track permissions usage. Permissions perhaps to open a file, to create a file, to read or write to a file. Or maybe we want to audit permissions in the sense of seeing who is logging into the VPN in the middle of the night, because maybe that's abnormal. Maybe our intrusion detection system picked that up because it's not part of the normal behavior. So that's kind of a user behavior analytics type of intrusion detection. So we can audit resource access, files, databases, signing into the VPN. We can also audit things like failed logon attempts. That could be an indicator of compromise. We might have attackers trying to break into an account, maybe through brute force password attacks. Even changes. Sometimes we need to verify the integrity of data, especially sensitive data. Has it been tampered with? Well, we already learned in chapter 2 about cryptography. Mike talked a lot about hashing and how we can use a hash to verify if a file has changed or not. But we can also use, in conjunction with that, audit logs to track who exactly made a change at a certain time that would have resulted in a different hash value. So it's all fine and dandy to talk about auditing, but why don't we take a look at how this might play out in a Windows environment? What we're going to do is take a look at a Windows server that's running as a virtual machine in the Microsoft Azure cloud. Now, I have specifically assigned a public IP address to this virtual machine. You shouldn't do that normally unless you absolutely need to. The reason is because if it's out there on the internet, someone is scanning it, someone is trying to break into it. We're going to see that in just a second. So why don't we take a look? Okay, so I've used remote desktop on my local machine to connect into my cloud-based Windows virtual machine. That's what we're at right now. So now that we're at that server, I'm going to open up my start menu, and what we want to do is go into the event viewer. All Windows machines have a number of different event viewer logs. And what I want to do in the left-hand navigator is drill down into Windows logs and choose security. This is the security or auditing log. Now, what jumps out right away is a series of audit failures. Uh-oh, what does that mean? Well, we're not going to know unless we look at it in further detail. So why don't we click on one? And let's look in the middle section by scrolling through what's happening here. It looks like an account failed to log on. Well, the first thing I can tell you is that happened not long ago, and it wasn't me. What does that mean? Someone else is trying to log on to this Windows machine through RDP because it's published out on the internet, and it shouldn't be, because this is exactly what you'll get. And if you don't have complex passwords, it's not going to take very long for a machine to be compromised. Let's figure out more here. My question is, wait a minute, what account failed? Who are they trying to log in as? Presumably in Windows, it's going to be administrator, right? The other thing is, what's their IP address? What's their computer name? Can I get that info? Well, let's find out. So if I scroll down, what's happening here? Unknown username or bad password. Yep, no surprise. Okay, and what I have here is the source network address. In this case, it starts with 175.201 and so on. That is not a known IP address for where I am remotely connecting to the cloud from my on-premises network. That's not any type of service that I would have configured that should be trying to access this virtual machine. That's someone trying to break in. If we look at another audit failure, just randomly selecting them here, let's see what else is going on. Well, this is interesting. I have another potential attack attempt from a different IP address. This one starts with 91.220, but this one actually has a workstation name. So someone's trying to do this attack from a Windows machine. It's actually called Windows 2012. So as we can see, there is an absolute wealth of information in looking at auditing logs, otherwise called accounting logs. This would be a wake-up call, for example, to say, oh my, I guess I shouldn't have a public IP address for this virtual machine if it's only being used for internal services in the cloud. And that would be correct. There's other ways to manage virtual machines. You don't need a public IP. You can have a VPN connection to the cloud and then manage it using its private IP. Or maybe you're using a jump box, which is it's a way you go through a server that has a public IP, And then from it, as a launching pad, connect to the private IP of hosts you need to manage. So here we have an example then of how to watch out for accounting or auditing entries that can help you harden your environment.